policeman cried. Today I'll learn Abigail. Let's go.
Welcome to History. Today we're going to take a look at some more states in our southeast region of the United States. One of the first states that we're going to take a look at is Kentucky. Kentucky is the home of where two sisters who wrote the song Happy Birthday to You, they wrote it in 1893. Now take a look at the state of West Virginia. West Virginia was the first state to observe Mother's Day, and they did so in 1908. Virginia is known as the birthplace of a nation. Now find Arkansas. Arkansas is the home of the first Walmart. Now find Tennessee. Tennessee has more than 3,800 caves throughout the state. So if you want to go exploring in a cave, Tennessee would be one of the states you would want to go look for one. Find North Carolina. North Carolina is the state where the Wright brothers flew the first successful powered flight. Now find South Carolina. South Carolina has the highest waterfall in Eastern America. It is nearly 411 feet high. Now find Louisiana. Louisiana has the tallest Capitol building in the United States. Its Capitol building is 450 feet tall, so almost as high as the highest waterfall, or a little bit higher. Find Mississippi. Mississippi is known as the catfish capital of the world. Now find Alabama. Alabama is known as the rocket capital of the world. Find Georgia. Georgia is the largest state east of the Mississippi River. Now find Florida. Florida attracts more visitors to their amusement parks in Orlando than any other amusement park destination in the United States. So several of these states have quite a reputation for different things and they are known for those impressive facts. Now, this would be the southeast region of the United States. Now, as we continue talking about history today, we're going to continue talking about a key player who helped America as she fought for her freedom from England. Now, there were many people who stood up against England's wrongs as England tried to impose higher taxes on the colonies. But one of the men, as we're going to find out today, had a very powerful voice, and God greatly used him to stir up others to want to fight for their freedom against England. Let's take a look at some words to watch for. Jimmy, will you turn on the lights for us? And let's find out more about America's fight for freedom. Read the first name under history for us, Una.
King George III.
Yes, he was the King of England during the time that America was fighting for her freedom. Read our next word, Deb.
Stamp Act.
Yes, and that again was the act that imposed those high taxes on imported goods. And read the next phrase, Madison.
House of Burgesses?
Yes, House of Burgesses. That was a group that met together in the colony in Virginia, and that was where they discussed several of these events that were taking place. Now open your books to our next chapter, chapter 10, and we're going to find out about this powerful speaker known as Patrick Henry. So take a look at chapter 10, Patrick Henry. There you see underneath his name the years that he lived, from 1736 to 1799. Now take a look at the timeline of important events along the bottom there. You see the 1400s is where this timeline starts. And then in 1492, who discovered the New World? Caden?
Columbus?
Yes, Christopher Columbus. Now go through the 1500s, look at the block of 1600s. In the 1600s, we had two settlements, the settlement of Jamestown and the settlement at Plymouth. Which one was in 1607, Emily?
Jamestown.
Good. Which one happened in 1620, Asa? Who landed at Plymouth in 1620?
The Pilgrims.
The Pilgrims is correct. Now look at the 1700s. This is where many of the current events that we're talking about with the American colonies fighting for their freedom from Great Britain, this is when these events are taking place. Look at 1776. What important document was written in 1776? Anna?
Declaration of Independence.
Yes, the Declaration of Independence. Now, the war for independence lasted from 1775 until 17 what, Emily?
83.
Good. Now, who became president in 1789? Carson?
George Washington.
Yes. Now, look above those timeline of events. There you'll see Patrick Henry and the red shaded area from 1736 to 1799. So you can see that the Declaration of Independence being written and signed, the War for Independence, George Washington becoming president, all of those events happened while Patrick Henry was alive. So now let's read more about this powerful speaker. Books up. We're going to start there on page 91 with Patrick Henry, the student. Caden, Josh, Asa, Lexi, come, and you can begin reading for us. Caden, we'll start with you, 8-year-old Patrick Henry.
Patrick Henry, the student. 8-year-old Patrick Henry carried his fishing pole through the woods on his father's farm for lunch. To catch some fish for lunch. Patrick was glad there was no school today. How I wish I could learn at home instead of going to school. He thought I could study more things. I would be able to do chores between lessons, and I could go fishing more often. He laughed out loud as he thought of what his father might say to that idea.
Good expression. Just watch that punctuation, rest your book. So Patrick Henry here at 8 years old is hoping that he could catch some what, Gage?
Fish.
Smile if you enjoy fishing. Oh, I see several smiles, so several of you do enjoy fishing. Patrick Henry thinks, I think it would be more exciting if I could just stay at home and learn rather than going to school, because I would be able to do more of these exciting things, more of these fun things that I enjoy. I would still be able to complete my lessons, but I could have more time for these other events. And for some of you, that may be something that you would wish or you think would be a lot of fun. Let's find out if Patrick Henry gets what he is wanting. Books up, continue reading for us. Let's have Asa continue with his father.
His father, John Henry, had gone to college. Patrick knew how important education was to him. Patrick studied at the local school until he was 10 years old. At that time, Patrick got his wish. His father decided to teach him at home in subjects such as arithmetic and history. He also learned how to read Latin and Greek.
Good, smooth reading. Rest your books. Did Patrick Henry get what he wanted or what he wished for, Carson?
Yes.
He did. When he was 10 years old, his wish became true. Who taught him at home, Tyra? Yes, his father did. Tell me something that his father taught him, Emily.
Latin.
Yes, so he learned all of these things from his father. His father had received an education from college, and now he was able to teach Patrick Henry these important things because his schooling was very important to his father. Now, as Patrick Henry becomes older, he's going to begin looking for a job. Let's see if he can find the job that's right for him. Books up, continue reading for us. Josh with As a Young Man.
As a young man, Patrick worked at several jobs before he finally found the right one. He and his brother opened and operated a store together, but they did not manage it well. Later had to close the store. When Patrick Henry was 18, he married
Sarah.
Shelton. Her father gave them the crops failed and their home was destroyed by fire in 1757. Farming was not the job for Patrick. Finally, in 1760, Patrick Henry became a lawyer. He seemed to understand people and was able to speak and argue his cases well. He liked helping the ordinary people in his town. His law business became very successful.
Yes, way to use that phonics for good accuracy. Rest your books. So Patrick and his brother began a store. Did the store work out for them, Aiden? No. He also tried farming. Did farming work out for him, Jacob?
No.
No, not at all. Tell me something that did work out for him that he really enjoyed doing, Emily.
He liked being a lawyer.
He liked being a lawyer. He found out that he could help the common people. He could argue the cases, and that was something that he really enjoyed, and so he opened up that law firm. Patrick Henry also enjoyed playing the flute and violin. So some of those things were things that he was good at. He did enjoy those things. Sometimes we have to find out things that we're not good at or we don't enjoy before we do find the right job that fits us. Let's look at some important words there at the bottom. Read the definition for a lawyer for us. Lexi, come do that.
Laura, a person whose job is to get up to another with laws and to speak for them
In court?
in court before a judge.
Yes, and continue with important names for us. Emily, Patrick Henry.
Patrick Henry, a leader of the American Revolution who spoke out against the British. King George III, King of England from 1760 to 1820. Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, additions to the United States Constitution.
And continue speaking to Virginia. Carson.
Speaking for Virginia. At this time, the Virginia colony was controlled by England. This meant the people of Virginia had to do what England told them, whether they agreed or not. In 1765, England's King, George III, made a law called the Stamp Act. This law forced the people of Virginia and other colonies to pay for a stamp to be put on important papers. Patrick Henry disagreed with the Stamp Act. He was a member of the House of Burgesses, which made laws for Virginia. He gave reasons why the colonists should make their own laws. Many people agreed with him.
Good accuracy. We're going to pause our story here for a moment, so rest your books. Now, at this time, England is making laws concerning its colonies. England had sent over several people to the New World, and they had started these colonies. Well, then England and the king there, King George III, thought this is what is best for the colonies. Although they are not there, they're not living in America, they're thinking over in America, this would be something good. This is going to benefit us. It doesn't matter what's happening in the colonies. This is what we want. So we're going to have row 5 represent Great Britain, and they're going to represent the British. And so the British over in England are thinking, this is what the colonies, we're going to tell everybody else what to do. Well, Patrick Henry and some of the people in the colony at Virginia were thinking, we want to make our own laws. We want to be able to form our own thoughts and ideas and things here rather than what works for those over in Great Britain and in England. So we're going to have row 1 over here represent the colony in Virginia, and they gather together, they have meetings, they form their own laws. And so, Jimmy, you may come stand beside me. Jimmy is going to come stand with me, and we're going to say that he is a representative for the colonists there in Virginia. So not all of the colonists go to every single meeting, but Jimmy is going to speak up for those in the colony of Virginia. And then we have some more colonists in another section of Virginia. We're going to have Arthur come to the front. Arthur is going to represent another section in Virginia, and these two, along with several others, would form a meeting, and they would meet together at a place called the House of Burgesses, and they would speak, and they would discuss, is this law going to work for us? Is this something that's good for the people where we live? And they would help make those decisions. Thank you, boys. You may be seated. So they are representatives. They are coming to speak and represent a whole group of people. And their best interest is for the colonies. They're not worried about what Great Britain is thinking. They're not worried about what the English are thinking. They're looking out for the colonies in America. Books up. Let's continue reading for the next 10 years. Let's have Jacob, Una, and Adriana come to read for us. And we're going to start with Jacob for the next 10 years. Right in the middle of that page.
For the next 10 years, King George III continued to demand high taxes from Virginia and other colonies. In September 1774, the colony sent men to meet in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Good smoothness. Continue, Una.
Patrick Henry was one of the men from Virginia. As these men met together, they began to see themselves as being from one new country instead of several colonies.
Very smooth, Adriana.
I am not a Virginian, but an American, he declared, is separate from England.
Smooth reading. Now pause. Let's rest our books open. Let's continue our story. So let's have Jimmy come back to the front. Let's have Arthur come. Let's have Carson, you may come. Let's have Carly come and Lexi come. So now we have several group of different people, different representatives coming, and all of these representatives are coming together in a place. Ladies, you can slide over with the gentleman. They're going to a place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They're representatives. They're speaking on behalf of different colonies. Let's say that Jimmy is representing the colonists in Virginia. Arthur could be representing the colonists from Massachusetts. Carson could be representing the colonists from Connecticut. Carly could be representing the colonists from New York, and Lexi could be representing the colonists from Philadelphia. So these representatives are coming together, and they're thinking these laws that the British and the English are putting upon us are not helpful. We're having to pay too high of taxes. We need to do something about it. And they began to think, we're not British. We're not living in Great Britain. We're not living in England. So we need to be called something different. We need to have our own thoughts and ideas. And rather than thinking, well, I'm a Pennsylvanian, or I'm from New York, or I'm from Massachusetts or Virginia, they began to think we're all together from America. We are all Americans. Thank you, helpers. You may be seated. And as people began, as Patrick Henry did, to see that England didn't have the colonists' best interest in mind, as they began to see that they had other things that would help benefit them, they began to think, we're Americans, we're not British. We need to have our own thoughts, our own laws, our own ideas. That's when they began to want to separate from Great Britain. You may close your books, leave them to the side, and I want you to smile as you remember the answer to the question that I asked you from our lesson today. What was one of Patrick Henry's wishes when he was a boy? What did he want to do? Jackson?
He wanted to be homeschooled.
Yes, he wanted to learn at home rather than have to go to school. At what age did Patrick Henry get his wish, Morgan?
He was 13.
Close. Emily?
10.
At 10 years old, he got his wish. What job did Patrick Henry find that he really enjoyed, where he could help others and speak for them in court? Gage? Jacob?
A lawyer?
Yes, what was it, Gage? He was a lawyer. What country controlled Virginia at the time that Patrick Henry's story begins? Carly? Yes, England is correct. What did Patrick Henry eventually become? It was the job he enjoyed doing, Morgan.
Being a lawyer.
Yes. Why did he become a lawyer? Carson? People that he could represent in front of the judge. Who was the King of England from 1760 until 1820? Dev?
King George III.
That is correct. What was the name of the group that made laws for the rest of the colonies at Virginia? Caden? Emily?
House of Burgesses.
It was the House of Burgesses. What was it? It was the House of Burgesses. Now we're going to review a couple facts from previous chapters. At this time, Jackson, step for your row, Arthur, Morgan, Dev, and Asa. From our chapter on Paul Revere. What job did Paul Revere's father have? Rows 1, 3, and 5 may step. Next seat up. What do we call a person who is learning a trade or skill from another?
Ambassador.
Students watching? Anyone? Row 3, or Emily? Jacob?
Princess.
Apprentice. Row 2 may step for your row. Next seat up. What do we call the part of the colonial army who used cannons in battle? Artillery. Row 1 may step. Next seat up. Tell me the place where the signal was sent to warn that the British were on the move. Row 2 may step. Next seat. What do we call the colonists who volunteered to fight at a minute's notice? Row 3 may step. Next seat. Which man between William Dawes, Samuel Prescott, and Paul Revere made it to Concord?
Samuel Prescott.
Row 3 may step. Next seat. What group did Paul Revere join to warn of England's unfair taxes? The Sons of Liberty. Row 1 is correct. Next seat. Where did Paul Revere travel to warn that the British were coming? Students watching? Anyone? Tyra?
Pennsylvania.
Caden?
Boston.
Carson?
Lexington.
Lexington. Row 3 may give yourself a silent cheer. Row 3 is the winner for our review game. You may return to your seats quietly. Students watching, we'll pick up our story with Patrick Henry where it leaves off, and we'll find out more about him in our next lesson.